please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody, so some more news to talk about involving teams near the bottom of the league, in this case last in the league, the Detroit Red Wings. General Manager Steve Yzerman has announced that Jeff Blashill will return to the team and once again be the coach of the Red Wings next season. And this has come to us as a surprise to quite a few people. I think a lot of people thought that after such an abysmal year this year that Jeff Blashill would be automatically gone, fired, and not be back as coach of the team. But I understand why Yzerman is bringing him back, and I will explain that throughout this video, why I actually think it's probably the right move to bring back Blashill at this point. Before we fully get into it, I just ask that you please subscribe if you are new to the channel and give this video a thumbs up, as that really helps out a lot and is very much appreciated. But let me explain here. So at first I was surprised, like most other people, like, wow, they only won 17 games this year. I mean, this year's Detroit Red Wings team is one of the worst non-expansion teams in NHL history. I mean, absolutely abysmal this year. So I was a little surprised when I first heard that Blashill was coming back. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it actually does make sense, and Yzerman knows what he's doing here. Let's start by talking about the Red Wings and how they were this year. 17 wins, obviously a shortened season slightly, but still, I mean, no matter what the circumstances, that's abysmal. Absolutely brutal year for Detroit. But that does not mean that Jeff Blashill is a bad coach. And I'm not saying Jeff Blashill is a great coach. I'm not saying, he's one of the best coaches in the league, anything like that. But Jeff Blashill is not necessarily a bad coach just because he's, only because Detroit was the worst team in the league this year. I don't care if Scotty Bowman was coaching the Detroit Red Wings this year. They were going to be a last place team. Look at this Red Wings roster. They're horrible. This is a terrible NHL team right now. It does not matter if it was Scotty Bowman, Joel Quenneville, Mike Babcock, Pat Burns, Mike Keenan. You throw any NHL coach in there. It does not matter who the coach of this team is. They were going to be a last place team this year. So putting that on Blashill is kind of unfair because it really didn't matter who the coach was. They were going to suck. And the more you think about it, you look at where Detroit is as far as this rebuild process. They're pretty much at rock bottom. They do have some young talent coming up, especially in that forward group. We know that. They've got some young guys. But they're not really impactful NHL players yet for the most part. There's still guys that need more developing. They need more time. And they're pretty much at rock bottom right now. I mean, 17 wins. They're as bad as it's probably going to get. It doesn't really make sense to fire your coach at rock bottom and then bring in a new coach when you're essentially setting that new coach up to fail. Because this is not a team that is significantly on the upswing yet. And that's, I think, the big point here. And Steve Yzerman knows this. Stevie Y is a very good general manager. He took the Tampa Bay Lightning from being a very bad team at the end of the 2000s and made them into a perennial playoff team and a perennial Stanley Cup contender through much of the 2010s. I mean, they were conference finalists in 2011. They went to the Stanley Cup final against Chicago in 2015. Yzerman knows what he's doing. He knows how to build a championship-level team, or at least a team that is near the top of the league year in and year out. So I have full faith in Steve Yzerman with Detroit and that he is going to get this team back to being a very good NHL team. He knows that this is not going to happen overnight. And a big thing for Red Wings fans to understand is that the Detroit Red Wings are not going to be good next year. And they're probably not going to be good the year after either. We are probably looking at 3 to 4 years at least before the Red Wings are a competitive playoff team again. And that is best case scenario. Listen, there is no doubt the Red Wings have some young talent. They've got some good young players in that pipeline. Their goaltending situation is a disaster. They've got nothing goaltending-wise. I mean, Bernier had a very good year this year. He's not a franchise goalie. Jimmy Howard he's done with Detroit after this year. He couldn't even win a game. None of those young goalies that they have in their organization, I don't see them immediately coming in and being Andrei Vasilevsky or being Carter Hart and just instantly coming in and playing at an all-star level in the NHL. I don't think they're that level of goaltender. They don't have a superstar in that organization right now. They're going to take time to develop, and whether it's through trade, whether it's through the draft, whether it is somebody that they have already in the organization, it's probably going to take a little while for this goaltending situation to play out. And then you have the defense, which is also pretty much a disaster. I like Filip Hronek. I think he's a very good young defenseman, and he's got a bright future ahead of him. Obviously, they have Moritz Seider, who, very, very young still, tons of potential, but again, needs time to develop. Let's not rush these kids. Needs time to develop. And Dennis Cholowski I like as well. I think he can be a good, solid middle pair defenseman. I don't think Cholowski's a top guy. I think he can be a very good number 4, though, or a good, solid number 3. But overall, that defense is an issue. They don't have that elite number 1. They don't have, their version of a Victor Hedman. They don't have their version of a Roman Josi or someone like that who is, the clear elite number 1 D-man. They don't have that yet. So that's something that they need to work on. Their defense as a whole is something that they need to work on. And forward-wise, they've got some good young talent, but they need better depth up front. They need more secondary scoring up front. So this is a team, my point is this is a team with a lot of issues. This is a team that is not going to get, drastically turned around in one offseason. This is a team that is not going to be the worst team in the league and really the worst team in recent memory one season and then be a playoff team the next year. It's not going to happen. And Steve Yzerman knows this. He's a smart guy. He knows that this is a process and that this is a full rebuild that they're going to have to go through that is going to take multiple years. And basically, if you were to fire Jeff Blashill right now, bring in a new coach, whether it's a former NHL head coach, whether it's a AHL guy getting a chance at the NHL level, whether it's an assistant coach getting a head coaching position, you are setting that. If you were to bring them in right now and make them coach Detroit next season, you are setting them up to fail. Because no matter who the coach is, whether they're new, whether it's the same, whether they're a veteran coach, whether they're a rookie coach, it does not matter. The Detroit Red Wings are not going to be good next year. You are setting this coach up to fail from the get-go if you bring in a new coach right now. And I don't think that's fair to anybody. And it's not fair to the coach. It's not fair to the players. It's not fair to the Red Wings organization. You are setting him up for failure right away. And, what's going to happen if you bring in a new coach and they finish 31st in the league again next year, which is a very real possibility? What's the point in bringing in that new coach? To fire them after a year and then have to go through the whole process all over again? It doesn't make sense. You don't bring in a new coach now, make the players get accustomed to a new voice, a new coach, make the players learn a whole new system, especially when you have so many young players, and then just have him be, finishing near the bottom of the league and getting fired and having to do the whole thing all over again. If you're the Detroit Red Wings, I don't think you bring in a new coach until you have made significant upward strides towards being a playoff team again. And right now, that's just not the case. They are at rock bottom right now. Now, obviously, getting Alexis Lafreniere, if they are 2-1 overall, would be a massive boost to this team. Still doesn't fix their defense. Still doesn't fix their goaltending situation. Detroit is not going to magically be good next year. Alexis Lafreniere is not just going to come in and one man change everything and make them a playoff team next year. It's not going to happen. This is a process that is going to take time. Steve Yzerman knows this. He knows that it really doesn't make sense to bring in a new coach right now because that coach is just set up for failure from the get-go. Detroit is going to get a new coach when you start to see them show signs that some of these young guys are ready to not only be NHL players, but be impactful, star level NHL players. You're going to wait until they get this defensive situation figured out, and you're going to wait until they have a goaltender that they can rely on as a franchise #1 goalie for the now and the future. Once you start to see that stuff come into place and the team get better and them start to rise in the standings and get closer to being a playoff team, then if you want to make a coaching change, then you make the coaching change and you say, new coach, here you go. Take this team to the next level. Take the next step with this team. Blashill got us this far through the rebuild, got us back headed in the right direction. Now someone else needs to come in and take that next step. Or maybe Blashill does get to see this all the way through. I mean, don't forget how good of an AHL coach Jeff Blashill was. How good of a player developing coach Jeff Blashill was when he was in the AHL. Maybe, maybe there's something there that, when you're on the inside and you're in the management and you're in the with the coaches and maybe Yzerman knows more than us as far as maybe he's going to let Blashill see this all the way through. And, he inherited a downward trending team, an old downward trending team from Mike Babcock that was not going to go anywhere, that needed to go through a rebuild, that is now currently going through the rebuild. Maybe they're going to let Blashill see this through and allow him to coach through the come up as well. We don't know. But I really don't think it does make any sense to change the coach right now. No matter who is coaching this team, they're not going to be good yet. They're still got a ways to go. No matter any way you cut it, whether they get Lafreniere or not, they still have a ways to go in this rebuild process. They need to figure out their long-term goaltending solution. They need to figure out their defense. They need to allow some of these younger players to develop a little bit more before they're ready to become impactful NHLers. And it just doesn't make sense to change the coach in the middle of that when you know that you're still not going to be good next year, probably the next 2 years. And it's going to be at least 3 to 4 years before you see any significant rise in the standings or anything like that. So I have to say I kind of agree with Yzerman on this one. Just keep Blashill. It's not that he's a bad coach. This team is not in any position to be winning right now. And you just kind of have to let this process play out and see this through. And then you can make your decision when this team starts to show significant upward momentum and significant improvement and signs that they are going to be a winning team again in the near future. And once you see that, you can decide, do we let Blashill see this all the way through, or do we bring in someone new, a new voice, and have them take this team to that next level? That's a decision that's going to be made in the future. I don't think it's a smart decision to be making right now because, like I said, you would be setting that new coach up to fail. And that's not a good position to put anyone in. So I actually agree with Yzerman in not firing Blashill. And at least for right now, while this team is at rock bottom, just keep things like that, like the coaching staff, intact. Let it self-play out and then see where the rebuild process goes from here. But that's my opinion. With that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.